In 2017, a German urban explorer entered an abandoned Soviet signals intelligence facility in the forests south of Berlin. He was alone. He had explored dozens of sites like this before: crumbling barracks, stripped-out command centers, the decaying skeleton of an empire that no longer exists. But this time, when he reviewed his photographs that evening, one image stopped him cold. In the doorway of a long concrete corridor, partially obscured by shadow, stood what appeared to be a tall, thin figure dressed entirely in gray. He had not seen anyone during his visit. The building had been abandoned for over 25 years. He posted the image to a forum. Within hours, 3 other explorers responded, not with skepticism, but with their own photographs. Different buildings. Different years. The same figure. They call it the Grauer Man. The Gray Man. And for the past 3 decades, people have been seeing it in the ruins of East Germany's most classified military installations. This is not a campfire story. This is not creepypasta. There are photographs. There are coordinates. And there are declassified intelligence files that suggest something was done inside these buildings, something designed to alter what the human mind is capable of perceiving. What those explorers encountered may not be a haunting. It may be something far worse. To understand what the Grauer Man might be, you first have to understand the places where it appears. After German reunification in 1990, the Soviet Western Group of Forces withdrew from East Germany, leaving behind an archipelago of abandoned military infrastructure, an estimated 675 installations scattered across the former German Democratic Republic. Many were in Brandenburg and Saxony, hidden in dense pine forests, behind crumbling perimeter walls, in places that had been erased from civilian maps for decades. Some were simple barracks. Others were hardened command bunkers, signals intercept stations, nuclear weapons storage facilities. And a handful, a very specific handful, had served a dual purpose. They were shared facilities, jointly operated by Soviet military intelligence and the East German Ministry for State Security. The Stasi. These dual-purpose sites are where the sightings cluster. Not the ordinary barracks. Not the motor pools or the training grounds. The sightings occur, with remarkable geographic consistency, at installations that were involved in what the Stasi internally classified as operative psychology. And it was inside these facilities that some of the Cold War's most disturbing experiments in perception and control were carried out. The first known reference to a gray figure at one of these sites dates to 1993, just 3 years after reunification. A group of Bundeswehr surveyors cataloging former NVA, National Volksarmee, infrastructure at a decommissioned installation near Jüterbog reported that one member of their team experienced what he described as a perceptual disturbance inside a sub-basement level of the facility's signals building. He reported seeing a motionless human silhouette at the end of a corridor that, upon approach, was not there. He also reported a persistent low-frequency vibration in his chest and an overwhelming sensation that he was being observed. The incident was logged in a federal survey report. It was bureaucratic. It was clinical. It was the first. Over the next 2 decades, 5 categories of anomalous experience were reported at these sites. First, visual sightings, the perception of a tall, gray, humanoid figure standing motionless in corridors, doorways, stairwells, or at the periphery of vision. Second, photographic anomalies, images captured on both film and digital cameras that appear to show a figure present in spaces the photographer reported as empty. Third, auditory phenomena, a persistent low hum or vibration reported in specific rooms and corridors, often described as felt in the chest rather than heard with the ears. Fourth, psychological distress, acute anxiety, paranoia, disorientation, and in several cases, temporary dissociative episodes experienced inside specific areas of these buildings. And fifth, the detail that elevates this entire phenomenon beyond folklore, spatial consistency. The sightings do not occur randomly throughout these installations. They occur in the same rooms, the same corridors, the same stairwells. Different people, different years, same locations. By the early 2010s, the Grauer Man had become well known in German urban exploration communities. Entire threads on forums like Rotten Places and Underworld documented the sightings, mapped their locations, cross-referenced the reports. Some explorers dismissed it as pareidolia, the human brain's tendency to perceive faces and figures in random patterns, particularly in low-light, high-anxiety environments. Others pointed to the photographic evidence and the spatial consistency and argued that something more structured was occurring. But the conversation changed entirely in 2013. That year, a researcher working with the Stasi Records Agency, the Bundesbeauftragte für die Stasi-Unterlagen, published a paper referencing a cache of previously unprocessed internal Stasi memoranda from the 1980s. The documents pertain to a program designated within the Ministry for State Security as Abteilung Grau, Department Grey. The name alone sent a chill through anyone who had followed the Grauer Man phenomenon. But the contents of the memos were far more unsettling than the name. Abteilung Grau, according to these documents, was a subunit operating under the Stasi's main department XX, which was responsible for political surveillance and the suppression of dissent. Its stated purpose was the development of what the memos termed Nichttödliche Einflussnahmetechniken, non-lethal influence techniques. The memos described three primary areas of research. The first was infrasound. The deliberate generation of sound waves below the threshold of conscious hearing, in the range of 7 to 19 Hz, using modified industrial transducers embedded in the walls and floors of specific rooms. Infrasound at 18 to 19 Hz is known to resonate with the human eyeball, causing visual disturbances including the perception of peripheral shapes and figures. This has been documented in peer-reviewed acoustic research entirely independent of any intelligence context. The Stasi, it appears, knew this and weaponized it. The second area was sensorische Entkopplung, sensory decoupling. Controlled environments designed to induce partial sensory deprivation through the elimination of external reference points, uniform gray surfaces, diffuse lighting with no identifiable source, acoustic dampening, creating conditions under which the brain, starved of input, begins to generate its own hallucinations. Shadow figures. The sensation of presence. These were not accidents of architecture. According to the memos, specific rooms were redesigned and rebuilt to serve as perceptual disruption chambers. The third area is the most disturbing, and the least well documented. The memos refer to it as Wahrnehmungskonditionierung, perceptual conditioning. The fragments that survive suggest a process by which subjects, and the memos are vague on whether these were volunteers, prisoners, or military personnel, were repeatedly exposed to a specific visual stimulus under conditions of extreme stress and sensory manipulation. The goal, as described in the memos, was to condition a perceptual response that could be triggered environmentally, to essentially program a hallucination that would recur whenever the subject encountered specific spatial or sensory conditions. A hallucination of a tall figure. Gray. Motionless. Watching. Three details in these memos deserve particular attention. First, the installations named in the Abteilung Grau documents correspond, with disturbing precision, to the installations where Grauer Man sightings have been reported. Jüterbog. Vogelsang. Krampnitz. Wunsdorf. The correlation is not approximate. It is exact. Second, the memos reference the physical modification of rooms, embedded transducers, surface treatments, acoustic modifications, that would, in theory, persist long after the buildings were abandoned. If infrasound generators were built into the walls and powered by even residual electromagnetic effects or wind-driven resonance, those rooms could still be producing subaudible frequencies decades later. Third, and this is the detail that I cannot stop thinking about, one memo, dated November 1988, just 1 year before the wall fell, contains a single line that has resisted definitive translation but appears to read, "Permanent environmental anchoring of the stimulus has been achieved. The rooms themselves now function as the operator." The rooms themselves now function as the operator. Consider what that implies. If the Stasi succeeded, even partially, in creating environments that autonomously induce a specific perceptual experience in anyone who enters them, then the Grauer Man is not a ghost. It is not a legend. It is not pareidolia. It is a weapon that is still firing. A psychological device embedded in concrete and steel, designed during the Cold War, abandoned but never deactivated, still triggering in the minds of anyone who walks through the door. The gray figure that urban explorers keep seeing and photographing is not something that haunts those buildings. It is something those buildings were built to produce. But there is a problem with this explanation, and it is a problem that keeps the mystery from resolving cleanly. The photographic evidence. Infrasound can cause visual disturbances in a living human brain. Sensory deprivation can cause hallucinations. Perceptual conditioning can create recurring illusory experiences. None of these things can appear on camera. A photograph does not have a visual cortex. A camera sensor does not hallucinate. And yet, in at least 11 documented cases, photographers have captured what appears to be a figure in spaces they reported as empty. Skeptics point to long exposure artifacts, lens flare, pareidolia in post-processing. And some of the images can likely be explained this way. But not all of them. Not the image from the Signals building at Vogelsang in 2017, where the figure appears to have depth, to cast a faint shadow, to occupy three-dimensional space. Not the photograph from the officer's mess at Krampnitz, where two explorers captured images of the same corridor 45 seconds apart, empty in the first, occupied in the second. So we are left with two incomplete explanations. One says the Grauer Man is a product of Cold War psychotronic engineering, infrasound, sensory manipulation, and perceptual conditioning that has outlasted the regime that created it, still operating in the bones of abandoned buildings, turning every visitor into an unwitting test subject. This explains the spatial consistency, the auditory phenomena, the psychological distress, and the visual sightings. It does not explain the photographs. The other explanation says that something is physically present in those buildings. Not a ghost in the traditional sense, but something, a presence, a phenomenon, an entity, that exists in those spaces and has existed there since at least 1993 and possibly earlier. This explains the photographs. It does not explain the Stasi files, or the infrasound research, or the fact that Abteilung Grau was named Department Grey decades before anyone called the phenomenon the Grey Man. Unless, and this is the thought that keeps me awake, both explanations are true. Unless the Stasi's experiments didn't create a hallucination. Unless they attracted something. Unless the infrasound, the sensory deprivation, the perceptual conditioning were not manufacturing an illusion but opening a door. And whatever walked through that door is still standing in those corridors, gray and motionless, waiting for the next person to see it. There are places in the forests of Brandenburg where buildings stand empty and the wind moves through corridors that were designed to make you see things that are not there. Or perhaps they were designed to make you see something that was always there but that you were never supposed to be able to perceive. The transducers are still in the walls. The gray paint is still on the surfaces. The rooms are still functioning. And the Grauer Man is still being seen. What do you think is standing in those corridors? A Cold War weapon that never stopped firing? Or something that the weapon was designed to find? Leave your theory below.